How's it going, everybody? ZBilbs back here with another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing a indie game that came out, I believe, maybe a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks or something, and that is a game called Inscryption. I don't know how many of you have heard of this game, but I'm here to just give you some thoughts, my opinion on it. I'm going to go over 7 different categories of its quality. You may have seen my 12 minutes review, so if you have, what kind of the structure is like this, but go over the categories and I will give you my recommendation of whether I think this game is worth it. Now, some background of this game. If any of you have heard of Daniel Mullins and his games, he's a pretty well-renowned indie developer. He's made Pony Island and The Hex. They're known for being really weird, meta, deep, multi-layered indie games that kind of transcend the boundaries of video game and reality. So I had already played The Hex before going into this, which I enjoyed. I didn't love The Hex for some reasons I might mention later. But this one immediately intrigued me as being this sort of like weird blend of horror game and card deck builder game. I was interested to see where it went. I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free. I might do a spoiler review later on if you guys want it, but this is definitely a game. If you do want to play it, you should absolutely go into it spoiler free. If on my review you do think it sounds interesting, I would say, once you're done watching it, go play it. Don't look at any spoilers anywhere. But enough talk, let's get into my review, get into my categories, and starting off, we have the graphics, performance, resolution of the game. Overall, this is a very nice looking game. For an indie game, probably even better than his previous games. His previous games were kind of more pixelated style. This one actually is a little bit of a mix. It looks a little bit pixelated, but it's also 3D. It has kind of like in the first cabin, like a dark, woody, rustic vibe going on. Just really nice, pleasant to look at. You can tell that he had a little bit more of a budget on this one. He got Devolver Digital to publish it, and so it just is a really nice looking game overall. Not necessarily like Game of the Year art direction, but it really works. It's really nice. For the most part, there is one section that kind of changes up the art style that I wasn't a big fan of, but I'm going to keep it vague. But next up, the music, sound, and voice. Now, I wouldn't say there's no like really standout music or tracks here and there, but kind of like the ambient tracks that they have, kind of the ambiance, the background noise is really solid overall. That's definitely one of the main factors for the atmosphere that this game builds really well, is just the different multi-layered music tracks that he's got in there. This game doesn't have any voice acting. It kind of just does that da-da-da-da-da-da when like text pops up, and I think overall it works fine. It kind of fits for the type of game it's going for. I think it could have been a little bit more fun if there was voice acting in there, but it's not the type of game where it really needed voice acting. But overall, music, voice, nothing like absolutely like spectacular. Gonna remember some sort of music track in there, but it really just works. It's solid for what it was going for. Next up, the story. This is the category that I really cannot say much about, but I will say for what the story did, I thought it was absolutely excellent. It's very unlike most conventional video game stories that you see where, you've got characters and, they're in-game characters and they're going and doing the stuff and it's all interconnected with the world. But this is a lot more meta, where it kind of bridges the gaps between video game world and reality, and goes some really weird, intriguing routes. Kind of the base story at the beginning is you're this guy in this cabin, and you have to play this other strange, mysterious guy in the cabin. And it's like a roguelite style where you build your decks and then you might die a few times, respawn, keep going until you finally get through this game board and figure out who this guy is and why he's there. And then after that, the story goes in all sorts of wild, weird directions that I'm not even going to say. But overall, I would say it's very much one of those stories where it leaves so many loose ends, so many things that you have to try to figure out and piece together, which can be kind of frustrating because I do like stories that are complex and detailed and like that. But when it's so complex and so out there that you need like to go on this giant crazy walkthrough, look at all these Reddit accounts, all these different theories and crazy stuff to have the slightest inkling of what certain things mean, I think that's a little bit too far. I know that's what the developer is going for, but if you're the type of person who likes ARG kind of crazy meta-narrative stuff, then this is for you. Overall, I would say I really enjoyed the story. It's definitely one that's going to stick with me and have me remember it for a while, but I think I just wish a little bit more was explained. So not quite a perfect story, I will say. Next up, the gameplay. Now this definitely, when it comes to Daniel Mullins games, gameplay tends to take a backseat to the story that he's telling, which is why the Hex, I didn't absolutely love it, because in that game you go through all of these like 6 different types of gameplay sections. And it's pretty much, you never can quite get a full grasp of the gameplay because it's constantly switching up to different things here and there, because it's really just a vehicle to tell the story. And while this game is definitely, it does switch it up quite a bit, and the story, the gameplay is a vehicle to tell the story. Once again, it takes a back seat to the story. I would say it does a much better job than the Hex of actually having more compelling, fun gameplay. You know, it builds it all, right off the bat, it builds this really fun, interesting roguelite style with all of these weird, goofy stuff. But even beyond the story, if you were just playing the gameplay for what it is and there was no story, I think you could have a decent amount of fun there. There's a really intriguing, cool, atmospheric, just card deck builder just right off the bat that does, you know, expand itself. Even when the game starts getting a little bit wild and going places, it all has this core element of this deck building game. So all in all, I think it's really solid gameplay. Not quite perfect once again, because as I said, it does kind of get a little crazy, and I would say the gameplay at the beginning of the game is probably the best that it gets, and as it iterates, as it goes on, it gets a little bit too crazy and messy for me. And then it also kind of it rides the coattails of the story, which is kind of the most important thing. But overall, still fun gameplay. You're still going to have a lot of fun playing it. So solid gameplay overall, but just like the story, it leaves a little bit to be desired. Next up, at the price and the content of this game. This game is currently out on PC for $20, and this is absolutely 100% worth the price. Whereas I think I was $15 for the Hex when I played that. That game gave me maybe like 5.5 hours of gameplay, and I was done with it. I was like, yeah, okay, that was an interesting experience, but I feel like I don't really feel like I quite got my money's worth. This one, I most definitely felt like I got my money's worth. I finished the game at roughly like 12 hours, something like that, maybe a little less, and I think you can finish it in under 10 if you're not going for secrets and stuff. I got a few secrets here and there. And then if you want to go full completionist, you could be upwards of, 18, 20 hours, depending on how slow and how many walkthroughs you look at. It definitely feels like a game that's worth its full price of $20. The game is a lot longer than it originally seems. Definitely no complaints about the content or the price of it. Really solid value. Next up, looking at the replayability and memorability of it. Generally, I would say This game is probably going to be pretty memorable because of just how crazy and wild the story was and how pretty fun the gameplay was. Replayable, not really. Just for the fact that kind of how the gameplay goes and how I've already said it piggybacks off of the story. Once the story is done, it kind of, you know, cuts it off and leaves it not much room for replayability. There's not a new game plus or anything, which is really a shame because I think the gameplay is really solid, but it really emphasizes that the gameplay is only a vehicle to drive the story forward. So once the story is done, there's not really a reason to come back and keep playing it, which is too bad because one of my favorite parts of games is just how much I can play it, how if I really love a game, I love to replay it and do all that stuff. There's definitely some replayability because there's quite a few secrets in there, and you may want to go back and try to find all the different secrets. But overall, I would say for the average person, this is probably a one-time playthrough. Play the game, see the story, and then you're done after that, which is kind of a shame. I wish there was just a little bit more, but it is what it is. And finally, looking at my entertainment of the game, or entertainment through playing the game, and overall, it was excellent. I was thoroughly entertained all the way through. The story is intriguing, and it kept me on the edge of my seat. The gameplay, while it does kind of dip in quality and enjoyment throughout, was generally really entertaining, really fun to just keep going through, and how it did change up, kept it fresh throughout. It was just a really great experience overall. I can't really say much more about that. I thought entertainment was just really solid. And overall, after weighing all of the factors, my final rating for Inscryption is an 8.4. This is a great game. It's not quite amazing. It's, roughly halfway between great and amazing, which a 9 is amazing for me. It could have been a little bit higher if it weren't for the main factors that the gameplay is a little inconsistent. It piggybacks off the story, and then probably the biggest thing for me is just there's not much replayability at all, which really kind of holds it back. I'd say for a Daniel Mullins game, for what he's trying to do of having this crazy meta-narrative experience, where the story comes front and center and all of that, I think he knocked it out of the park. I think this game was as good as it could have been for something that he wanted to go for, and I really respect that. I'm really glad that this game was good, because I love it when indie games come out and do all this fun new stuff that AAA games are too afraid to try to do. So a lot of respect to Daniel Mullins. I'll definitely be following him and checking out his upcoming games. He's a really talented developer, and I would absolutely recommend going out and buying this game on Steam or any other platforms it comes out on. Really fun experience. It's probably going to be, one of my favorite games from this year, like maybe top 5, who knows? I played a lot of really good games this year. We'll see if I do like a favorite games from this year list. Yeah, that's all I got. So go out and play this game. It's really solid. Let me know what other games you want me to make a review on, what other videos you want me to make. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want to. That's all I got for you. I'll see you later.